Have you ever waited so long to hear someone speak that when their voice finally breaks the silence, it feels like the world itself pauses? It's as if time slows down, and every ear leans in because we know those words carry weight. That's exactly what's happening with Johnny Depp right now. After years of quiet, years of mystery, and years of people whispering about what might be going on in his world, he has finally spoken. His words aren't loud or dramatic, they're not rehearsed for a camera or staged for applause. They're honest. And because of that, they're powerful. So powerful that once you hear them, you won't forget them. Johnny Depp. Just the name sparks memories, doesn't it? For some people, it's Captain Jack Sparrow with his wild eyes and unpredictable swagger. For others, it's Edward Scissorhands, silent and misunderstood, creating beauty with blades instead of fingers. For others still, it's the dark, haunting voice of Sweeney Todd, or the mischievous Mad Hatter. For decades, Johnny wasn't just an actor, he was a force. He was someone who seemed to vanish into his characters so completely that you forgot he was even acting. He wasn't just Hollywood, he was bigger than Hollywood. But then, suddenly, it all changed. Silence. That's what followed him for years. No long interviews. No big confessions. No loud speeches about the rumors, the trials, or the chaos. Just silence. And the thing about silence is that it makes people curious. It makes people wonder. We start to fill in the blanks ourselves, don't we? Why did he disappear? Was he finished with acting? Did he give up on Hollywood? Or was it simply too painful to stay in the spotlight? The truth is, Johnny Depp didn't vanish without reason. Before the silence came the storm. The public saw pieces of it, legal battles, tabloid stories, endless debates over his life. His name wasn't just in the headlines, it was dissected in conversations, splashed across social media, twisted and pulled in every direction. And for anyone, even someone used to the spotlight, that kind of chaos takes a toll. Maybe that's why, instead of fighting louder, he chose something different. He walked away. He left the endless flashing cameras and the constant noise of Hollywood behind and went somewhere far more quiet, Europe. Not to hide. Not to surrender. But to breathe. To find something he had lost. And that choice to step away, to disappear for years, is what makes these first words now so meaningful. Because when someone holds their silence that long, when they wait until the world has almost forgotten what their voice sounds like, you know that when they finally speak, it's because they have something worth saying. And here's the twist. His first words weren't about Hollywood. They weren't about fame. They weren't about money or careers or comebacks. They weren't even about the storms he had survived. They were about something far simpler, far more human. They were about peace. About healing. About rediscovering himself. Surprised? Most people were. Because when we imagine a star returning after years of silence, we expect drama. We expect fireworks. We expect something rehearsed, polished, made to grab attention. But Johnny's words were the opposite. They were raw. They were reflective. They were almost painfully honest. And maybe that's why they struck so many people so deeply. Because when was the last time you heard a celebrity speak without layers of polish, without a script, without thinking about how it would play in tomorrow's headlines? It almost never happens. Yet here he was, simply telling the truth. What he admitted was almost poetic. He said silence gave him strength. He said that stepping away, disappearing, and living outside of the spotlight helped him rediscover himself. It wasn't about avoiding the world. It was about remembering who he was when the cameras were gone. In that silence, he found his love for art again. For music. For living life on his own terms. And if you know Johnny, that makes sense. Because he's never really been just an actor. Yes, the world knows him for his roles. Yes, his characters became legends. But underneath that, he has always been more than Hollywood. He's a storyteller at heart. Through films, yes, but also through the guitar in his hands, through the brush on his canvas, through the quiet moments most people never get to see. Fame gave us characters like Jack Sparrow, but silence gave him something more important. It gave him himself back. That's why, when he says silence saved him, it hits different. It makes you stop and think. Maybe fame isn't everything. Maybe success isn't everything. Maybe sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from the noise completely. And isn't that something we can all relate to in our own lives? How often do we drown ourselves in constant noise? We scroll endlessly on our phones, chase deadlines, fill every second of our lives with distractions. But maybe what we really need sometimes is silence. A pause. A break from the chaos to breathe, to think, to heal. Johnny's story is a reminder of that. That sometimes the best way to find your voice isn't by talking louder, it's by going quiet. But here's what makes his words even more powerful. They weren't just about himself. He didn't only speak about his healing. He spoke about his fans. And if you've followed him for years, you know that Johnny's relationship with his fans has always been something special. He thanked them. Not in a quick, passing way, but in a way that felt deeply genuine. He said their loyalty, their patience, their belief, it mattered to him. That he never forgot them. And in an industry where fans are often treated like background noise, that honesty stands out. He wasn't just saying, "Here's my journey." He was saying, "Here's our journey." And that changes everything. Because think about it. Johnny could have returned with a big Hollywood speech. He could have announced a new project, or tried to spin the narrative. But instead, he looked directly at the people who stuck by him and said thank you. That's rare. And it's why those words cut through all the noise and reached people on a deeper level. Experts often say that when someone disappears from the spotlight for years, it's not just about hiding. It's about healing. It's about reclaiming control over your story. And that's exactly what Johnny has done. He didn't let the headlines define him. He didn't let the gossip decide who he was. He didn't rush to defend himself with sound bites and interviews. He chose silence. He chose patience. He chose himself. And when he was finally ready, he returned, not with a roar, but with truth. And that is strength. So let me ask you, do you think Johnny's silence made him stronger? Or do you think the world simply missed him too much to let him fade away? It's an interesting question, isn't it? Because either way, his first words carry more weight than any headline could. And maybe, just maybe, there's something we can learn from this too. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't to fight harder or speak louder. It's to step back. To breathe. To give yourself time. And when the moment is right, to come back, not with noise, but with honesty. That's what Johnny Depp has done. And that's why his first words after all these years don't just feel like a celebrity making a statement. They feel like a human being sharing the truth. And what might this mean for his future? For his fans? For Hollywood? Well, it could mark the beginning of something new. Not a return to the same chaos of the past, but something more personal, more meaningful. Imagine Johnny taking on roles not because they'll make headlines, but because they matter to him. Imagine him making music, painting, creating, not for the cameras, but for himself and the people who truly care. That kind of shift is powerful. That kind of freedom is rare. And maybe that's the real takeaway here. That life isn't about constant noise. It's not about endless distractions. It's about finding peace. About remembering who you are when everything else goes quiet. About realizing that sometimes, silence is the loudest, strongest voice you can have. So now, I want to hear from you. What do you think about Johnny Depp's silence and his first words after all these years? Do you see it as strength? Do you see it as healing? Or do you see it as something else entirely? Whatever you think, share your thoughts, because this isn't just a story about a celebrity, it's a story about all of us. About how we handle storms. About how we find our way back. About how we use silence to survive. And before you go, let me leave you with this. If you've been fascinated by this journey, there's more. There's another side to the story, his life in Europe, away from Hollywood, away from the noise. What he's been doing. How he's been living. What he's discovered. It's a side of Johnny Depp that will surprise you, and I've covered it in another video. Trust me, you'll want to see that one too. And if this breakdown meant something to you, take a second to like, subscribe, and be part of this community. Because here, we're not about gossip or noise. We're about uncovering the real, human side of fame. We're about telling the stories that matter. Because at the end of the day, sometimes one honest word echoes louder than years of silence. And Johnny Depp just proved that to the world.